Hey guys, we are going to be simplifying radicals this week, and so we wanted to give you some examples that could help you with your at-home learning. So just to get us started, you can simplify a radical expression by removing all perfect square factors from the radicand, okay? And the radicand is the expression under the radical sign. So some examples of perfect squares that we're looking for could be square root of, so we've got 4. Okay, square root of 4 is 2. When you take the square root, you should get a whole number. That's what a perfect square is. Okay, and then 9, 16, 25, 100. These are several examples of what we're going to be looking for. And if we can't find perfect squares in and of themselves, we are going to look for numbers that have factors that contain perfect squares. So let's get started. The multiplication property of square roots says for every number a is greater than or equal to 0 and b is greater than or equal to 0, then the square root of a times b is equal to the separated version of the square root of a times the square root of b. So if we plug real numbers into there, the square root of 54, okay, that's not a perfect square, but one of its factors is the square root of 9 times the square root of 6 works. So to help simplify, I take the square root of 9 and then I bring it down here. That's 3. And the square root of 6, I can't break that down anymore. So my final answer is 3, square root of 6. So let's look at some examples. So the square root of 20, let's think about the factors of 20, okay? And a factor that is a perfect square is square root of 4. Square root of 4 times the square root of 5 gives me the square root of 20. Now, for the sake of showing you why this works, I'm going to go a little further and go, okay, I know this is a perfect square. We all know it's 2, but square root of 2 times square root of 2, there's 2 of them. It's a pair. So I'm going to pull that outside of the radical sign. So it's going to be 2. Now, 5 over here, I can't reduce that anymore to get any perfect squares. So that's going to stay underneath the radical. So there you go. 2 square root of 5 is the simplified version of square root of 20. So let's look at the next one, 120. Okay, so what factors of 120 are perfect squares? Let's see, square root of 4 and square root of 4 times square root of 30. All right, so the square root of 4 is 2. Again, this is not, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing it to show you. There's a double. Cool, that's coming out. And then square root of 30 is going to be left alone because there is no factor of 30 that is perfect. So we're done. Okay, what about the square root of 24? 4 again. Square root of 4 times the square root of 6 gives me that. So I know, again, square root of 2 times the square root of 2, that's coming out 2 square root 6. Okay, so this is if we just have numbers. But of course, we got to bring in the variables. You guys know. You can also simplify radicals with variables. Okay, so an even exponent is a perfect square. So you're going to look for evens, okay? And perfect squares can be pulled out from underneath the radicand and moved out in front of the radical, but it's their simplified version. So for you that need words, here are the words. For those of you that need numbers and examples, here we go. So the square root of 25a to the 4th. Let's always start with the numbers. So I know, and you guys know this too, 5 times 5 is the square root of 25. It's a perfect square. So when I do these kind of problems, I like to build my answer as I go along to help me stay organized. So I know there's a double there, so 5's coming out. Now, let's look at a to the 4th. This really means a times a times a times a, right? All of these are multiplied together. But I've got a pair, and I've got another pair. So I have 2 pairs of a's. So for every pair, an a comes out because it's the square root of a squared, right? So I have 2 pairs, So I'm going to have a squared. Now there's nothing left. We've used these, and these, so I'm finished. 5a squared. Let's look at the next one. Square root of 45y to the 10th. Okay, so 45, let's do that first. A perfect square that's a factor of 45 is 9, so the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. The square root of 9 is equal to 3. 3 is on the outside now because I've got a pair. Awesome. Now, the square root of 5, I can't break that down anymore. So I'm going to put a box around it to remind me it's got to stay underneath in my final answer, okay? Now, over here, I've got 10 y's. Okay, now, a lot of you are like, okay, yes, I can just divide by 2. Okay, but I just want to show you why it works. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with no leftovers. So I've got 5 pairs of y's in there. So no, there's going to be no y's left over. And the only thing left over is the square root of 5. And now I'm done. 3y to the 5th, square root of 5. All right, let's look at another one. The square root of 49, w to the 7th. Okay, so we know that 49 is the square root of 7 times the square root of 7. We know. There it is. That's coming out. 7. Now let's look at the w's, okay? So I've got w times w. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's a pair. That's 1, 2, 3. Okay? W to the 3rd because there's 3 pairs. And this guy is left inside. Sorry, buddy. Okay? Final answer. You are going to find much quicker ways to do this. But if you want to do it this way and it works for you, you do that. All right, let's look at this one. Sometimes there's multiple things inside. So 18 square root of 9 times the square root of 2. That's the perfect square in there. That works. So the 3 is coming out because we know square root of 3 times square root of 3. There's my pair. So 3 is coming out. Now put a box around the square root of 2. That's staying in. A to the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's an even number, so I know there's not going to be any left. There's a pair and there's a pair, so that's 2 pairs. So a squared. Now let's do b to the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's a pair. Here's a pair. So there's 2. So b squared and this guy. He's not going to be alone, though. He's got that square root of 2 over there. So the a's are all gone. I'm left with 2 and b underneath. There we go. Okay. Now, sometimes there's going to be numbers already outside the radical. That's fine. You just have to remember to multiply everything out there. Okay? So, we'll ignore it for now. Square root of 9 and the square root of 2. The 3 is going to end up coming out, guys. Okay? But the 2 is already out there. So I'm going to put a 3 out, and the 2 is already there. We'll save that for later. This guy. He's staying under. W to the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's 1. Here's 2. W squared and left over. So what's left over is the square root of 2 and w. Square root of w. But I'm not done. I got to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. So my final answer is 6w squared square root 2w. Okay? Same thing as if there's a letter outside, a variable. Remember your exponent rules. So for 20, square root of 4 times square root of 5. That gives me square root of 2 times square root of 2. There's my double. It's coming out. So 2, and then there's already an a out there. Poor 5 staying inside. Let's look at a's. There's 2 a's. Well, that's a pair. That's coming out. But hang on. I already have an a out there. So it's a squared. Okay? And then, because I have this A plus A that's already out there, don't forget that. 5 B's, 1, 2 pairs. There's a B and there's a 5. Actually, I'll put the 5 first. So 5 and B. That's what's left over. So 2A squared, B squared, square root of 5B. That is how you do these, okay? Last one. This is a big one. Let's do this, guys. Okay, 12. Let's look at 12. There's a bunch out here already, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. Okay, we're going to do 2 times 2, square root of 2 and square root of 2. There's my pair. So 3 is already out here. Now I'm going to multiply by a 2. Save that for later. X to the 8th. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. But there's already an X out there, guys. So instead of 4, it's going to be 5. Y, there's 1, 2, there's one set in there, and there's another Y there. So instead of it being just Y now, it's going to be Y and the Y that's already there, so Y squared. And lastly, Z to the 3rd. There's a pair that's coming out. There's not a Z already out there, so we just leave it as is. Just bring it out. There's one Z. And then what's left? All the X's are gone, the Y's are gone. We got a Z and this little guy over here. So my final answer, before I actually multiply that out, is going to be 3Z underneath. So 3 times 2, 6, X to the 5th, Y squared, Z, square root of 3Z. Woo! Not hard, just can be kind of complicated. So it really helps up here if you want to figure out your best way of organizing your stuff. Please let us know, guys, if you have any questions. We'd be happy to answer them. We just thought this would be a good way for you all to get some of those questions answered through this video. So let us know. Good luck, guys.